So this evocation of the Sistine Chapel we're looking at, do you think that would be a detail Demi would have looked from the book, or is it something that he would have done as a visual artist?
It's not in the book. I think this was his idea. I mean, I can't help but feel, you know, especially when you think of the cell, the glass wall cell, and then the cell where, you know, things could be handed through, is such a different, you know, and I'm sure it could be, you know, right, that they were shooting that scene. And then, because it's interesting that he waits till this scene to hand back the file. This is the last time he sees Clarice. And I guess he's already planning his escape. Because he could have done it at another point in the movie, had Lecter, you know, hand back the case file. But he does it here, I think, and who knows, maybe they were shooting it and, you know, it like came to him. But the close-up is also wonderful because then he's got the handshake in that last scene. And I think it's meant to be a contrast. Because I think the Crawford, she's the one who reaches out to Crawford. And, you know, it's kind of like a reconciliation, but not as meaningful as this, I don't think.
I think it's interesting that in this film, despite his being a cannibalistic serial killer, Hannibal Lecter became a very kind of appealing and popular part of popular culture. And it's kind of evoking what you said about the Beast in Beauty and the Beast, that, you know, the Beast is someone you want to stay in the film, and the prince he turns into just seems like a lukewarm character after encountering the Beast. So there seems to be a parallel between these two characters.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know, as you probably know, I mean, Cocteau was terribly ill while he was making that film. If you read the diary of that film, it's like she had, that's right, he had terrible skin problem, and I don't think it was ever diagnosed. But I mean, it halted filming, and then he turned his lover into a beast. I mean, you know, Labette was Cocteau's lover. And so every time, you're right, every time I think about that movie and this one, I mean, I say in the book several times, to love the beast is the acceptance of, you know, a lot of things. I mean, even writing the book, a lot of things came up for me that was, gee, am I really, you know, I'm writing about this, am I really always doing it? It's really hard to be somebody who's trying, I think as all of my friends in this room know, it's really hard to just be yourself. And, you know, and also, I think, you're only usually learning in life when you're in a really bad place. And that's why I called it a beast, because I think that when I think back on my life and the really important things I've learned, they have not always been from the most likable people or people who have put me in comfortable positions. And so I think that's, yeah, I think that the beast, loving the beast is like the message. And I think that's what Cocteau would say. But I love that remark. Who was it that made the remark, "Give me back my beast"? Greta Garbo. When maybe an apocryphal story, I'm not sure, but apparently when Greta Garbo saw Labette, and you know, at the end when he turns into a handsome prince, she said, "Give me back my beast." And as Kevin just alluded to, everybody feels that way. And I think that's exactly what Cocteau was doing. And I think that's what they're doing here. Lecter became, right, this incredible figure. I mean, God, you saw pictures all over the place. And he is a wonderful figure because he is a cannibal, but, you know, he's like initiating her into the mysteries. So. Yes, Michaela.
So when Starling embarks on the journey, it's undeniably brave and heroic, but wouldn't you also say that she was kind of sacrificing herself when she agreed to take the case?
Yeah, I mean, the blood ritual is certainly a kind of sacrifice. There's also foolhardiness here. Heroes are fools sometimes. I mean, they just, plow ahead because, they're looking for knowledge and they trip and fall and they get bloodied. So yeah, I think that's a very good point. It does, change always requires self-sacrifice. And it isn't pretty. Some heroes do not get out of that labyrinth. Some heroes go mad, some die in despair, and some never, maybe they embark on the quest, but they don't finish it because it's too frightening, or because there are circumstances that prevent them from doing it. And so, yeah, it is self-sacrifice. And that's what I mean, that in our culture, that kind of quest isn't always welcome because, people don't want to be around anybody who's doing that all the time. You try not to make it obvious, but I mean, I think that, I think it's the hardest thing we all do, is there's always this choice. And what Demi did that's, a little bit special in this film is showing or delineating a woman's quest. Because women's quests are generally more interior, and so what you're saying is absolutely true. Maybe the blood doesn't show. Whereas in the male quest, you have all that epic poetry about knights and, of course, fighting the dragon and so on, as we talked about in class with the Gorgon Medusa. And so, I think that that it's definitely self-sacrifice, and that's what the blood ritual is. Yeah, thank you.
This is present in all similar type of stories told in books or
I think if you look at every quest for identity or meaning, and in fact, Thoreau's book, if you look at it, it's a very similar path. And all of these stories, we've heard 100 times. It's just that I don't know of another book, and that was the reason I wrote the book. I didn't know of another book that discussed the literary roots of the quest films specifically. So, and in the male quest, very important, the Fisher King is a very important myth, as is Perseus and Percival. And they're all the same. I think I watch Beauty and the Beast once a year, right? As I do Bringing Up Baby, one of my other favorite films. And it just kept occurring to me that every time I saw a movie, we call them coming of age films. And if I see another coming of age film, I think I'm going to throw up. They're sort of weak versions of Demi's quest here. But they follow the same patterns. You'll see a blood ritual, you'll see the disorientation and confusion at the start, and then this terrible moment when she remembers her father in the coffin. And I love that Demi doesn't hang on it, but you get it. And she's going down to kiss him. That's a moment of really being close to the closest she's ever gotten to death. It's a wonderful moment.
I have another question. I'm just wondering if there are any kind of mythological connections to the staging of the climax of the film where she's encountering Buffalo Bill in total darkness.
Yeah, I don't know if I can think of it. There's, of course, there's the darkness before the light, right? You could say, but I didn't come across any sources that, I think the darkest moment, if you remember I think it's in Percival, yeah, Cretin de Troyes' Percival. There's a moment when the hero is in terrible despair. The male quest are always men. It's always, the adolescent and 40 years old. That's basically what convention says. But of course, men suffer just as much as women do, and some engage in these quests all of their lives. But there's a moment of darkness, which I liked in Percival, where he's in the forest and he's 40 years old and it's snowing. And I think it's I don't know what kind of bird it is, like flies over, and the bird is injured, and the blood falls onto the snow, and he remembers the complexion of the woman he loved. And so it was the darkest moment of his life, and then the snow and the blood. It's a beautiful moment, the end of the epic poem. But that's the only one I can think of. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for doing that.